Good evening and welcome to the August 1st meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. We'll be calling the meeting to order. We'll also ask the public to please silence their cell phones at this time, and I'll introduce the board. To my far right, your far left, is James Morse, who is an associate member of the board, followed by Jerry Patamas, who is a full voting member. Ken Foreman is our vice chairman. I believe he's expected to be here. My name is TJ Hurry. I'm the chairman of the board. To my left is Ed Van Kuren, who is a full voting member, followed by Bob Dugan, who is the board clerk, and Mary Berry, who is an associate member. Also with us tonight is Noreen Stockman, who is our zoning administrator, and Ashley DeMello, who is our office assistant and recording secretary for tonight. The Zoning Board of Appeals is charged with applying the zoning bylaws for the town and considers requests for special permits, variances, and appeals as provided in the bylaws which have been approved by town meeting and the Attorney General's office for the Commonwealth. All decisions are made through the public hearing process. Our goal is to hear testimony from the applicants and the public, and also to allow a full and fair discussion of the project prior to rendering any sort of decision. To begin each hearing, the clerk will read the public announcements of the hearing and then present any pertinent information from the files, such as referrals from town departments and summarizing correspondences to and from the board. The applicant or the applicant's representative will then have 15 minutes to make a presentation, and then time may be extended by vote of the board. The board will then question the applicant, and the public will also be invited to comment. Public comment should be directed only at the project, and we also ask you to please refrain from making any personal or derogatory statements, but such statements can include an opinion in favor or in opposition, or it just might be a question about the nature of the project. The chair will limit discussion in the interest of time if comments become repetitive. All members of the public wishing to speak should wait to be recognized by the chair. And please come to the podium to the right here, give your name and address for the record. We typically limit public comment to 2 minutes per person. And we also ask you to direct any questions, comments, concerns regarding the project through the board and not directly at the applicant or the applicant's representative. We will then either close or continue the hearing. When the board is satisfied that enough information has been presented by testimony and in the file to make a decision, a motion and vote of the board, the hearing will be closed. In the alternative, we may continue the hearing to a future date and time. After the hearing is closed, no more testimony may be taken. And as for board discussion and possible decisions, the board may then further discuss the project among ourselves, and a motion to deny or approve would be made and voted upon. Such motion would include a summary of key findings and conditions. An affirmative vote of 4 members, which is a supermajority, is required for approval of motions on special permits, variances, and appeals. A split vote, such as a 3-2 vote, is a failure to carry and would result in denial of the project. Under Massachusetts general law, if a special permit is denied, the applicant cannot return to the board for 2 years unless the project is substantially different. And turning to our agenda for tonight, we have 3 continuations followed by 4 new hearings, and we have a few things on our open meeting agenda. So turning to the first continuation of the night, we have application 26-19, Ketchadorian Ballas, 5 Canopisset Drive in East Falmouth.
So in application number 26-19, we do have a request for an extension. This is coming from Attorney Brian Wall. He says, please accept this as a request to continue the hearing on the above referenced matter from August 1st, 2019 to September 5th of 2019. And he has also discussed this matter with Glenn Wood Esquire, the attorney that represents Mr. Penticus, and also Attorney Wood has assented to this request. So I would make a motion to continue this hearing to September 5th, 2019.
Second.
Okay, motion was made by Bob and second by Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
And also for the record, there's an agreement for extending the hearing, which was executed by the applicant, and I'll be signing on behalf of the ZBA. Turning to the next continuation of the night is Gellis, trustee, 24 Spencer Baird Road in Woods Hole. applicant.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. Jonathan Poloni, Falmouth, Mass., here for the applicant owner, 24 Spencer Baird. We were before you about 2 weeks ago with this project showing this habitable space being added to the attic, which we believed was the half-story above 2 stories. You requested at that time that we consider modifying the proposal to limit the space under 5 feet. So we looked at that. I had a conversation with the owner as well as the architect, and there were a couple reasons that they felt that adding a wall or some sort of partition at 5 feet wouldn't really work. One of the main things is that there are skylights that are being proposed here, here, and here, and here, kind of opposite the dormers. These would fall on the north side of the house. So you can see here, this is the street facing. This is where the skylights are proposed. And this is, of course, to allow light into that room so that it has a better feel to it, rather than just being pretty dark if no windows were there. So, again, just to recap, the calculations that we had used excluded the closet space, but included the bedroom, the bathroom, the hallway here, and all this area up to the 5 feet here. And that calculation came to 518 square feet, which is roughly half of the story below it. And we would respectfully ask that you approve the project as proposed, given the difficulty of adding something at 5 feet, which would effectively cut off the ability to add skylights onto that side of the roof. We think that this meets the definition of the bylaw that does refer to the building code and includes the limitation on areas underneath a sloping roof that are below 5 feet do not count as habitable space. I also just want to add, I don't know if I really pressed this before, that this is intended as a children's room. I don't think we would be proposing this type of project if it was intended to be someone my size. So I know that there is, and this was pointed out the last time, that there is a bed that's positioned here. It is a children's bed. So I think that's something that's also worthy of consideration, where it falls underneath the 5 foot. Now, having said that, we do have an alternative proposal, which is also included on here. And this alternative proposal was designed to fit within the guidelines that the building commissioner did provide us. So just to recap those guidelines, the building commissioner wasn't including closet space, was not including the bathroom space, and not including the hallway space, as those were excluded under the building code. So those are not counting towards the habitable area. So to get some partition there, the architect was able to add a 2-foot knee wall that runs the length of the building here. And there is a way to kind of get that with modification, and that does add cost to the project, but it can be done so that there is a partition at 2 feet that will exclude any area between that and the wall that otherwise would be open. And when you calculate the floor area up to that limitation, you get roughly the same square foot calculation. So in lieu of approving the project as proposed, we have this alternative proposal that I think does meet the guidelines that the building commissioner had said that he would be satisfied with. So I'll leave that to if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Attorney Poloni. James, you want to start us off if you have any questions?
No questions at this time.
Jerry?
No questions, I'm happy with the 2-foot knee wall, I'm also happy as it was proposed before.
Ken?
I came in late, so I'll pass.
All right, we'll come back to you.
I
Ed?
have no questions.
No, I'm fine with the architect's letter that he submitted, Roslansky, explaining that the area under 5 feet is not habitable space.
Mary?
I have no questions.
All right. Any members of the public have any questions, comments, concerns regarding this project? Seeing none, back to the board.
I had a follow-up question.
Sure.
I was convinced by the architect's letter, which does not propose the 2-foot knee wall. What are you asking the board to vote on? Or Bob, you were the one that brought up the knee wall initially.
Well, I guess he said if we don't, we could just go with the original proposal, which I'm fine with, without having them do the extra cost of closing the knee wall.
Okay, which was one 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, which is the one they explained, without doing the knee wall change.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, just want to make sure.
Right.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
And I think the architect clarified the
Yes.
position. It was, it's not for us to decide, but maybe town meeting can,
Yes.
The architect
figure
did put
that
a, he did put some in the letter we may want to consider later on, and he said that he would like the board to consider maybe a proposed change to the zoning bylaw, that space under a sloped ceiling under 5 feet in height will not be considered habitable space. So that might be something we want to consider to change anyway, so we don't have this question come up again.
right. All right. How would the board like to proceed then?
Motion to close the hearing?
Second it.
Motion to close by Jerry and second by Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone care to make a favorable motion for the project?
I'll do a motion to approve.
Okay.
That, as originally proposed.
As originally proposed, and I think, didn't we already have a draft of this one? No?
Second.
Thank you, Jerry. Go on to findings.
So they're finishing off the 3rd floor. Third floor habitable space meets the bylaw because it's not considering the area under 5 feet in ceiling height. Meets 240-216. Not substantially more detrimental, increases utilization of the property.
There's no increase in bedrooms, right, if I remember?
No, and they did submit bulk calculations. And it fits well within the rest of the neighborhood. What was the bedroom count?
Don't seem to have it.
They're keeping the bedrooms the same, right?
Four
There's no
bedrooms
increase in
plus
bedrooms.
2 is 6,
Shake your head, yes.
right?
And this was, there was no increase in
Two is
bedrooms?
6.
No,
Should be
no,
in the
so
application.
they're increasing to 6, but they
Oh,
did have the flow neutral bylaw.
Oh,
It was
okay.
voted by the selectmen.
So that's important to
Okay.
note.
do they have it, or they have to go to the selectmen?
No, it said they already voted it. The height will be 31 feet 9 inches. Meets 240-3C.
That's just about it for findings?
Conditions per plans.
Anything else for conditions?
Pretty straightforward.
I think
No, I
it
think
is.
it's all.
Alright. So, motion to approve was made by Bob and second by Jerry. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 September 5th.
Who's voting, by the way?
That's, Ken, were you?
No, I'm not. I'm not on this.
Bob, sorry about that. In terms of voting members, who was here?
Who was here last week, right?
That was me.
Was it,
2 weeks ago, I believe that was the on this one.
is it?
Sure who's here?
Should be in the minutes from the
Four
last time.
anyways.
I don't have it here.
I have the minutes.
Well, anyway, we're pretty sure it was James. Alright. Mary was definitely here? All right, so
Mary's here,
we'll,
yeah.
it was both James and, Mary, oh, okay, Mary was assigned, all right. And Mary, we had a vote in the affirmative?
Yes.
All right, unanimous. Sorry about the, okay. Thank you. And thank you for working with the board for the alternate draft proposal, and like the architect pointed out, perhaps that's an issue that can be clarified at town meeting. Thank you again. Okay, up next, we have application 29-19, Swain, 26 Fiber Lane in East Falmouth.
Was there testimony
I
before on
don't
this one?
believe there was.
Do you have it on there?
I didn't open yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, we'll just have to open it up first, because I don't think we've done that yet.
So application number 29-19, being all persons deemed affected by the Board of Appeals under Section 11 of Chapter 40A of the Mass General Laws, you're hereby notified that William T. Swain of East Falmouth, Mass. has applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to Sections 240-38I of the Code of Falmouth to construct an addition to existing detached garage workshop and convert into accessory apartment on subject property known as 26 Viber Lane, East Falmouth. From engineering. Sewage, suitability of the subsurface sewage disposal system, it would be subject to the Board of Health review and approval. Water, suitability of the existing water service to the municipal system, subject to Water Department review and approval. Parking and access, Viber Lane is a private right-of-way in this area, and there are no proposed access modifications. Grading and drainage, the project is a small, this says the project is a small addition to an existing building with little site disturbance, but it's my understanding that the addition has been removed. No stormwater calculations were provided, however, the increase in stormwater will be small. We can recommend the board add a condition that the roof of the modified building be connected to raid garden, dry wells, or other stormwater measures. Concom, no comment. Fire department, no comment. Health department, applicant has 4 bedrooms with a 4-bedroom septic system. The proposed accessory apartment will increase the bedroom count to 6. Office does count as a bedroom. In order for this, the applicant will have the apartment as proposed and will need to install a new septic system. Since the property is in a coastal pond overlay district, the septic system must have an enhanced nitrogen removal. This is true as long as the applicant proposes more than 4 bedrooms on subject property, per the accessory apartment bylaw. Water department, applicant must install new water service, if not a well. Contact Steve Rafferty. Assessors, no comment. Planning, the applicant, this is from May 10th. It says the applicant called planning office yesterday and said he would be filing an application in the future, but he is in front of the planning board, but they have yet to file a decision. There is a note here from Tom Bott from June 27th. It says at their meeting of June 25th, 2019, the planning board reviewed the application of Nathan Swain of 26 Viber Lane for proposed detached accessory apartment. The board did not take final action on the application. The board liked the site plan presented, but did have some questions regarding the calculations of the total square footage of the principal structure. The applicant is in the midst of revising their plans and will be back in front of the board on July 9th. I understand Mr. Swain has requested a continuance with the ZBA hearing. And that's all we have.
Okay. And for the applicant?
All right, how's it going? My name is Nathan Swain. Applying for a special permit for Carolyn and William Swain at 26 Viber Lane. We're looking to convert an existing garage to a one-bedroom accessory dwelling to be occupied 7 or more months out of the year. The existing lot is 48,133 square feet. I met with the building commissioner to determine the usable floor spaces, at which time we determined that it's just considered a two-bedroom house. There's third floor, but those, they don't meet bedroom requirements. The existing principal structure is a two-bedroom, 1.5 bath, 1,610 square foot house. The proposed accessory dwelling is 583 square feet, which is 36.21% of the principal. The existing lot coverage by structures is 5%. The existing structure, pavement, and parking is 14.4. The height of the proposed is 13 feet and meets all setbacks. We will make a parking spot on the north side of the lot in the front. We will install a 1,500-gallon septic tank and tie it into the existing leaching field, and we will install rain barrels.
Turn it to board questions if you're all set. Okay. Mary, we'll start off with you. Anything?
Not at this time.
Okay. Bob?
No questions?
No
Ed?
questions?
Ken?
I'm sorry, could you repeat what you're doing regarding the wastewater, the septic?
We're gonna add a 1,500-gallon septic tank and tie it into the existing leaching field. And then for the rainwater, we're just gonna install some rain
So
barrels.
are you doing anything for enhanced nitrogen removal?
No, because it's not, it's actually, we consider the principal to be a two-bedroom. So we're actually just gonna be adding one bedroom, so it's gonna be a total of 3 with the accessory, after I met with Rod.
I missed that too. You consider it to be a two-bedroom?
Well, I met with Rod on that.
Okay, because what was the referral again?
That if it's over 4 bedrooms, then they need a,
Only
IA.
if.
If it goes over 4.
Right, okay.
And they'll be up.
They didn't say that they decided it was.
Said it
No.
will,
Okay.
just
And you'll be at 3 beds total for the property.
Correct.
And the Board of Health hasn't ruled on this yet?
Not yet.
And the Planning Board has yet to issue their approval?
Yes, they had issued it last week.
Can we get a copy of that?
So we don't
Site
have,
plan
so we don't have an answer on that yet, so we would probably have to continue this tonight,
Well, if they,
waiting to hear what their final decision is.
There's nothing in the file.
did we get?
No, they haven't submitted yet, so we can't.
You don't remember what they said?
They said yes.
I mean, I'd take your word on it, subject to us getting the approval letter within 48 hours or something like that. But
Well, we don't even have, without their decision, we don't even know what any of their
Oh, conditions that
discussions, conditions, anything was.
Well, we can,
incorporate by reference any site plan review? I know it's a little bit-
I'd rather just get through board questions before we
Okay.
chat about that.
Okay.
Anything else in terms of questions, Jerry?
No.
Okay. James? Any other questions for him at this time? Turn it to public comment. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding this project? Seeing none, back to the board.
Maybe a compromise, we propose a draft approval, subject to receiving it at the next meeting. That
Yeah, I
way-
think we also need to hear from the building commissioner said the main house is a 2-bedroom, but the health department hasn't made a decision, so we should have get a decision by the health department that that's also a 2-bedroom, so we know we don't have to, because the plans that we have submitted show the front house as 4.
That's right.
Noreen, in terms of the planning board site plan review, we haven't received anything from them?
Well, it might work too, you know, we conditionally approve it, subject to clarification from the building commissioner.
Well, Jerry, what's your rush? I mean,
Well, why delay it if it's a
well,
matter of
there's
administrivia?
quite a bit of of information here that is not, I agree, this shows third floor, 2 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms on the second floor, that's 4, plus the accessory apartment.
We approve a 3-bedroom, period.
But it's not what he's submitted right now. We don't have even those plans. The plans we have showing 4. That would give them time to submit the new plan showing that it's only a 2, and then it would also let the health department chime in and accept that it's the 3.
Yeah, and it's.
And
the
then
di-
they'll know they don't need the IA
We
system.
could still
Right.
draft a positive opinion, subject
Well,
to,
this isn't that complicated. I think we can vote it
that's what I meant.
at the next meeting, when it's continued, with the new information that we have. I don't think we need to
I
have
was
a full draft, because we don't even know what's gonna go in that draft unless we have the information regarding the planning board and Board of Health.
I tend to agree with you, Ken.
No, I guess, yeah, there's enough outstanding. We didn't get revised plans.
And just to put you at ease, Mr. Swain, I'm not hearing anything negative from the board
Yeah.
regarding this project. It's just we need to tie up some loose ends from other departments before we can issue a special permit.
I mean,
I
maybe
agree.
Mr. Swain could chime in on why the plan submitted show 4 bedrooms.
So the third floor is kind of a loft area, and it doesn't meet, with the 5 feet. We don't have the 5 feet there, so we don't have the square footage to consider it a bedroom
Do you have 5 feet anywhere on that floor?
at the ridge.
It would be interesting to know how much of the area is
Yeah.
Good point.
above 5 feet.
And it's a ladder going up there,
I mean, these,
What's the present use of that area?
a loft storage.
Doesn't hurt. I guess we wait for the information.
right, I'm just wondering why on the plan you submitted it says bedroom.
It's just, I grew up in one of those rooms, so,
You said it's only accessible by a ladder?
yeah.
Suggest we continue it.
Sure.
I'll move that we continue.
Second it?
All right, so motion to continue, to what date?
Ask Noreen what date.
We're looking pretty busy. It shouldn't take too long to get that information.
Should be okay for the
Planning
next
board's
meeting.
already issued their decision, and just to clarify with the Board of Health.
The building
22nd.
commissioner and also revised plans.
Right.
Also, you'll know.
Is August 22 too full?
It's just as full as tonight. I don't see a reason.
It shouldn't take that long.
Should be straightforward.
Okay, I move that we continue to August 22, 6:30 here in Town
All
Hall.
right.
Second.
Motion to continue from Ken, second by Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. See you 22nd.
Okay, that does it for our continuations. We're moving on to new hearings. We have application 41-19, Banner, 7 Toledo Street, and T-Ticket.
Here. Oh,
We didn't
No,
do
you didn't.
3919 or 4019.
4119.
they're here, they're just.
Oh, okay, okay, sorry.
Yeah,
So
item
app-
41 is out of order.
So application number 41-19, being all persons deemed affected by the Board of Appeals under Section 11 of Chapter 40A of the Mass General Laws, you are hereby notified that John L. Banner III of T-Ticket, Mass. has applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a modification of special permit number 92-18 pursuant to Section 240-3C and 240-23I of the Code of Falmouth to allow an accessory apartment within the proposed detached garage structure on subject property known as 7 Toledo Street, T-Ticket, Mass. No referrals. Assessors includes lots 4, 5, and 6 in its land court. Wastewater division comments. 7 Toledo is in the Little Pond Sewer Service Area. The flow-neutral bylaw allows an increase in the number of bedrooms on a single-family residential lot in a sewer service area to 4 by right. The building hasn't actually connected to sewer yet. Sewer connection permit application was submitted this week. The sewer connection plan appears to place much of the gravity pump, the pump and discharge pipe in the footprint of the proposed accessory apartment. I would recommend laying out the pipes and pump to minimize the amount of rework required if this accessory apartment is permitted. Obviously, if the accessory apartment is permitted, it will need to be connected to the sewer, and a sewer connection modification permit will be required from the wastewater division. That's signed Amy Lowell, wastewater and superintendent. Water department, if water is needed to apartment, there needs to be a separate water service. Fire department, no comment. Planning, the applicant has a site plan review and is on the July 23rd planning board agenda. And we do have a draft submitted July 25th, 2019, of a planning board approval. That's it.
For the applicant?
Good evening, Chairman and Board. My name's John Banner, Precinct 3, 7 Toledo. This is the same presentation I gave last November. And the board did approve a detached garage with a fourth bedroom on top. At the time, if you recall, the previous 2 weeks earlier, the planning board had turned down the application for an accessory apartment because the week before that, the town meeting voted to make a minimum lot size 7,500 square feet. My lot is 7,200 square feet. In the April 2019 town meeting, they voted to make the minimum lot size for an accessory apartment 7,000 square feet, provided the house is connected to the sewer. Just to update what you had in that note, my house is connected to the sewer as of the end of June this year. And I did meet with planning board last week, and they fully approved to put an accessory apartment on top of detached garage, which has already been approved. So I'm just asking for your confirmation that we can go ahead with that.
Okay, turn it to board questions if you're all set.
That's the existing house. That's it. Some more drawings. That's the plot plan.
All right. Jim, any questions?
No questions.
Jerry?
Do we have the planning site plan review, the draft?
We have a draft.
Oh, so we have it, okay. And Amy you did tie in
Yes.
a couple months ago, or?
The end of June, we tied in.
End of
I tied in, yeah. And that question about is the footprint of the garage, it's all been worked out with the guy that installed the sewer. He had the same drawing, so it's fine.
Anything else, Jerry?
No, it's basically up to Amy where the pump goes.
Sure. Ken?
Okay, so, let's see, so no modifications to the main house?
No, it's not, it's detached.
And can you just remind me the percent of the
It's-
main house footprint that this is, or square footage?
It's less than 20%.
Okay.
This apartment versus the total square footage of the house, right? So,
Okay, yep.
And the total lot coverage then with this, it says it on the drawing over there, is 24.8%.
Okay. And the total number of bedrooms is 3, is that correct?
Well, 3 in the house, and this will be the 4th bedroom.
Okay. But you're on the sewer, so it's not an issue. And then just if you could review for me, so the parking you're gonna have for both you and the apartment, how many parking spaces?
It's a, so this is the existing house. I'll show you. This is the existing house.
Yeah.
And this is where the septic was. So
Right.
it's the garage space. And this whole dotted area is gravel. Right. So you can park
Okay, those are my questions.
Ed?
No comments. Looks like there's plenty of room. I'm surprised you're not making it bigger. 20 feet.
Well, it's 24.8%. I can't, I couldn't make it much bigger.
I mean, there's plenty of room in the lot. The stakes, you did a good job showing the stakes there.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions.
All right, Bob?
No, I guess the only question I have, but it probably with building department is, don't you need a second means of egress somewhere, or no?
A second means of,
So the only entrance into the apartment right now is from inside the garage?
yes. It's a door on the side of the garage that goes into stairs, that will go upstairs.
So building department didn't require that you have a second egress anywhere?
At this point, no. I mean, the application is going in, but, I mean, if they do, I'll have to put it in, but at this point, I don't have one.
All right, that's all I have.
Bet I will.
Mary?
Yeah, I had the same question about the egress.
You may just want to check with the
Yeah,
building department.
I have a feeling that they may ask you to do that.
And if they do, he has to come back here.
Yeah.
Unless my colleagues would approve the second means of egress, if so required by the building department. I mean, which,
We can talk about that in a minute. We'll just turn it to public comment. If anyone has any questions, comments, concerns regarding this project? Seeing none? Guess now we can chat about that if you want.
would that be considered a minor administrative change if we approve it? That
Well, what if it bumps the
depends
lot
if they-
coverage over 25%?
It depends on what he requires, if he required, an outside stairway or, I mean, you'd have to find out from Rod what the.
Okay, so we want him to come back here.
Is it possible?
So is it with a, if it's a fourth bedroom, because that's what's been approved, that's a fourth bedroom, there wasn't a second egress on that?
It's not the betterment. Usually all structures require two means of egress, so I don't know if a window may meet that definition, but I've never seen one that just has one entrance. You know, usually there's an outside stairway and an inside stairway, or,
Fire safety issue.
Or you throw a rope ladder out the window.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say,
I mean, I've seen,
that's what people do. I mean, you can buy those things, put them by the window, it's just it's a
yeah,
metal.
it just depends however they define it.
yeah,
I
whatever
guess.
the building department allows.
I think we may have seen it in the past where the building commissioner has required a second egress, an exterior egress from an accessory structure like that.
I mean, these drawings were done by Longfellow, and they built some of these, so I'm just surprised they didn't say that. That's the first I'm hearing that we needed a second one. But if that's what's required, that's what required, but I don't know, I don't have the,
Up to the
Is
building
it-
can't go for the
commissioner.
building permit till we get these approvals.
So I guess I just had a question for the board. If we drafted a positive motion, and then in the meantime, before we voted it at the next meeting, he found it, he needed it, could we add that in?
Could we draft a positive motion saying, provided he's less than 25% lot coverage? Because if he isn't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we bump up, make it thin stairs.
I mean, so long as it doesn't exceed the
Yeah,
lot
so it doesn't
coverage.
exceed whatever the lot coverage is.
Yeah, that way we can move forward.
Or we could
In
give
this case,
Noreen, oh, pending an agenda item later on today, we could give you the administrative approvals if.
Yeah.
Why don't we do that?
Yeah.
I think that's a fair compromise.
Yeah.
Fair solution.
So, I guess we're safe to close the hearing?
I think we are.
No one had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know. Did you ask for public comment? I can't remember.
I did, and no one. How's that, Noreen, if we might structure the decision like that?
That's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Would anyone like to make a motion to close the hearing?
So motion to close?
Second.
Motion to close by Bob and second by Ed.
Vote?
That'd be good. If anyone would like to make a motion to,
Did we say aye?
oh, I'm sorry, made by Bob, second by Ed to close. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. And I think we're all leaning in the same direction. Anyone want to make that motion?
So motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, so Bob and Jerry, findings?
Meets 240-3C and 240-23I, 240-216. Existing house has 3 bedrooms. The accessory apartment will have a single, so there'll be a 4-bedroom max. Property is on the Little Pond Sewer Service.
It needs, did you mention the accessory bylaw? Was that one of the sites
Yeah, we'll have to,
just for? It does meet it.
yeah, it meets,
Yes,
Yeah,
it's-
I mean,
yes.
it
yeah,
has
yeah,
to
that's
meet it.
240-3C.
I mean, it just went through planning last week, so.
We may want to make a finding that the applicant had previously applied, but it was due to lot size that he didn't meet the bylaw, and now the town meeting has voted a reduction from 7,500 to 7,000 square feet if you're on the sewer system.
Did you say he did tie in, right? He has tied
He
in.
did, by testimony,
The
did
main
tie into
house, you'll have
sewer.
to tie in the,
Well, no, I think everything's tied in.
Well, it will be tied in.
it's not built yet.
There's a T-junction there for this.
Okay, so it will be, you're right.
He has
It's not
sufficient
built yet,
on-site
so it's-
parking.
Yep, sufficient on-site parking.
He'll still need a modification from the wastewater superintendent.
Lot coverage is at 28.8. Maybe put in the findings that they may need a modification for a second means of egress. Conditions per plans. I think we should put in there that if they need a modification for the second meads, it can't go over the 25% coverage.
And if a second egress is necessary.
If a second egress is necessary, if it meets administrative, that,
We're comfortable with that.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then you'll have to meet the comments from water, wastewater, and engineering.
You're incorporated by reference, right?
Yeah, we'll reference their referral dates.
Okay, anything else for findings or conditions? None? All right, motion to approve was made by Bob and second by Jerry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pass the plans up.
Okay, up next we have application 39-19, 797 Main Street LLC.
So application number 39-19, being all persons deemed affected by the Board of Appeals under Section 11 of Chapter 48 of the Mass General Laws, you are hereby notified that 797 Main Street LLC of East Falmouth, Mass. has applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to Sections 240-3C and 240-240G1B of the Code of Falmouth to construct an addition to the existing building and convert to a restaurant with 3 apartments above on subject property known as 797 Main Street, Falmouth. I'm going to read in the engineering comments. Parking. The plan indicates 44 interior dining seats and 12 outside seasonal seats. There are 3 two-bedroom dwelling units proposed. If the outside seats are not included in the parking count, 6 spaces are required for the dwelling units and 22 spaces are required for the restaurant, for a total required of 28 spaces. 34 required spaces if the outside seats are included. There are 19 spaces shown on the parcel and 12 spaces shown in Cycle Ave for the parcel's use at all times, and 9 spaces shown in Cycle Ave for the abutting bank's use until 4:30, when they are available for this parcel. This means that until 4:30, there are 31 spaces available for this parcel's use, and after 4:30, there are 39 spaces available. We do not have documentation provided to us that indicates the applicant has the appropriate permission to use the spaces off the parcel. We are assuming the planning board has this information. Will there be signs or pavement markings indicating resident spaces and what time parking in the bank spaces will be allowed? We defer to the board on the adequacy of the parking scheme and whether there is adequate permission to park in the off-site spaces. The 45-degree angle parking spaces do not meet town standards. The parking block is not shown in the correct orientation. It should be parallel to the vehicle bumper. The length of the stall should be measured from the outer line. The actual stripe length will be longer than the stall length, with unusable space against the curb. With what is shown, the end of a vehicle will stick out into the drive aisle, resulting in less drive aisle width than what is labeled. There are 2 parking spaces proposed in front of the dumpster. We defer to the board on adequacy of these spaces. Access. A driveway permit or street opening permit will be required for the work in Main Street. We request that the board include the following condition or similar language in any approval: that the applicant shall obtain an approved driveway permit or street opening permit and post any required bond with the engineering department prior to the start of construction. The applicant shall complete the work per the approved permit. It isn't clear if an off-street loading area is required, which is 240-108-1C. We do refer to the board if this is required. Stormwater. During review of the site for planning, we recommended determination of groundwater level on site. Was a test pit dug for this? If so, will 2 feet of clearance above seasonal high groundwater be provided? From Water Department, this location has an existing 1-inch copper line feeding the property. The building will be subject to a cross-connection survey once it is built. Assessors, no comment. Fire Department. Dear Board, this correspondence concerns application 39-19 for a special permit to construct an addition to existing building and convert to a restaurant with 3 apartments above at 797 Main Street. The Falmouth Fire and Rescue Department has reviewed the plans for access and hydrant locations. Whereas the building will be required to have a fire sprinkler system installed, we request that the developer coordinate the installation of a fire hydrant with the Water Department's Main Street Water Main project. Please feel free to contact me with any questions. Mel Trott, Fire Prevention Officer. Planning Board. The Planning Board voted a positive decision on the applicant's site plan review application. I will forward a copy once this is signed. That's dated June 6th, but we don't have anything in the file regarding their positive motion or any decision as of today's date. And that's it.
Okay. And for the applicant?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, member of the boards. My name is Hal Chuber. I'm a consulting engineer with offices in Dartmouth, Massachusetts. I do apologize tonight. We have a technical issue. In the last 3-4 times I've been coming through this board or the planning board or the historical commission, I would send electronic copies of the plans and they would load them, and I had the assumption that my files will be loaded to your system. I didn't bring a flash drive tonight with me, or I usually bring a flash drive and hard copies just to be on the safe side, and I apologize for that, but I can make the presentation tonight. You do have copies of the plans with you. The existing site is located at 797 Main Street in the town of Falmouth. The site measures approximately 0.43 acres and located in the Business Redevelopment Zone District. It's bound to the north by Main Street, Route 28, to the east, south, and west by existing businesses. And you can refer to your existing conditions as I'm going along. The property was the former Cumberland Farms gasoline filling station and has been vacant for a few years. Underground fuel storage tanks, dispenser fuel pumps, and canopy structure have been removed from the site. There's an existing L-shaped 1,850 square foot building at the site, which used to be a convenience store for the gasoline filling station. Access to the site is via 2 existing driveways off Main Street. Approximately 94% of the site is covered with impervious surfaces, including rooftops, paved parking, and driveways. Now, the The property, the owner of the property and the applicant is proposing to demolish the existing building, excluding of the concrete foundation structure, square the building, add 836 square feet to the existing building first floor footprint, and construct a 1.5-story building on top of the first floor. The first floor of the new building would be used as a 44-seat restaurant. This is a 44-seat aggregate, regardless the indoors and outdoors. We went through this with the planning board, and I can go on, I can explain further with the parking situation. The restaurant square footage is 2,560 square feet gross area. That includes a dining area of 1,200 square feet. That's the area with the tables and the small bar that we show on the floor layout. 3 residential apartments are proposed on top of the restaurant. Currently, all runoff generated from impervious and developed areas on site sheet flows untreated in the northerly and southerly directions and drains to Cycle Avenue and Main Street. Stormwater collection system. There are no stormwater structures or a drainage collection system on site. We did submit drainage calculation. It was reviewed by the town engineer. You have some comments there, additional, I'm not sure, but we'll go through this, and we need to address it through site plan review, and we do have some conditions through through the planning board that we have to address those comments, from water, sewer, fire, engineering. With the proposed redevelopment and site modifications, all runoff from impervious surfaces on site, including paved parking, sidewalks, rooftops, and landscape surfaces, would be collected and directed to an underground leaching drainage system on site designed to accommodate 2.5-inch hour intensity runoff volume as required by the town of Falmouth. In addition, approximately 4,000 square feet of impervious surfaces would be replaced by landscaped area and decreasing the lot coverage from 94% to 21%. In turn, we're increasing the open space on the site by 15%. The existing easterly driveway on Main Street will be closed and replaced with landscape to improve traffic circulation. This development design is in compliance with Section 240-40, Business Redevelopment District of the Falmouth zoning bylaws, the purpose of this section is to promote the revitalization of commercial centers using mixed-use redevelopment, integrating retail, restaurant, and community services uses with housing, such as second-floor apartments, condominiums, and townhouses. This redevelopment fosters pedestrian-friendly streetscapes by requiring rear and side yard parking, allowing shared parking between businesses and uses, reducing curb cuts, and allowing parking reductions in exchange for on-site green space. The district also relaxes front, side, and rear yard setbacks to encourage sidewalk development and pedestrian-friendly storefront to offer street-side gathering places in front of redeveloped properties rather than front yard parking fields. So basically what we did, we incorporated an open space area in the front with some seating. We eliminated the parking in the front. It's only designated to the side and at the rear to the property. We increased the open space, and we closed the curb cut. We did exactly what Section 240-240 states that you would like to see in the redevelopment property. The plans have been approved by the planning board, subject to reciprocal easement and parking agreement between 797 Main Street, which is the applicant, and Falmouth 815 LLC, which is the owner of the abutting property. And this agreement is being finalized and would be forwarded to the planning board for approval very soon. Once the final reciprocal agreement is approved, the planning board would move to vote and approve the drafted site plan approval and at the next available meeting. And the reason, I know they did submit a positive review on June, but unfortunately, the abutter, Mr. Jamal, who owns the properties in the back, was out of the country for 3 weeks. He just got back last week, and we're in the process of finalizing the parking agreement between the two properties. So basically, with the parking agreement, we would have 29 parking spaces available for 797 at all time. It means before 4:30, we will have 29 parking spaces, which is what's required by zoning bylaws. After the business hours, after the bank is closed, there'll be another additional 9 and 5, 14 parking spaces available on Cycle Avenue for, it's in the agreement, it's written in a way that it's available for, on a first-come, first-served basis. So those spaces would be available for the restaurant. And as I mentioned, Mr. Jamal was out of the country, and he just got back, and we're finalizing the agreement. Once we finalize the agreement, we'll send a copy to the planning board, and I assume the planning board would move to vote on, they already drafted the decision for I do have a copy. I'm sure they probably forwarded a copy to you, but I think Noreen is here. She might know something about that. I'm not sure if she had a chance to talk to Tom, but he told me that he was going to send something to the zoning board before the hearing, just to let them know this is what's happening. But basically, they won't vote on their decision unless we have an executed agreement, which will, I said, come in probably within the same next couple of weeks. Other than that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. James, you got any questions?
No questions.
Jerry?
Is the residential parking gonna be displayed as residence only, so that,
Yes, sir.
okay.
It's on sheet 3, it's said residence parking
But it'll
is
be so
6.
designated, so
Yeah, it'll be,
customers should know
correct,
that.
correct, yeah. There'll be 6 parking spaces.
And did you get approval from the selectmen or wastewater supervisor?
Not yet. We do have to go through because we have an increase in the sewer.
Need a variance
We
from the
need,
selectmen.
we do. We do still have some work, but we're going through the channel with all the boards before we get to, and that could be a condition on your approval, I mean, obviously. Thank you.
Anything else, Jerry?
No.
Ken?
I just wonder how you respond to the engineering comment about the angled parking, which said that it's.
I would have to check on that. I think we do, I do believe that we meet the requirements. It's 21 by 9, but I'll have to.
Well, their point certainly about the stops is correct.
Yeah, the orientation.
Yes.
Yeah, we just have to rotate the orientation of the parking to be perpendicular to the parking space.
I just wondered, so you have four angled spaces there, and I wonder if you could meet their concerns by just making them into parallel spots.
No, we can't, because parallel parking at 22 feet long by, we won't have room. We'll lose all the landscape on the western side of the property. But I don't have a problem meeting their requirements, whatever, it's changing the orientation of the wheel stops and looking into the dimensions. So that could be, I'm sure in your approval, you will have to state that we need to satisfy engineering, fire, water, sewer, this all standard, so.
The other question, do you have a handicap spot anywhere? Yes.
Yes, we do. We do two handicap spaces.
And what is the front yard setback to the building?
The front yard setback is 20 feet, and we do meet, there's no issue with the building is behind the setback line.
Okay. Those are my questions
Yeah,
at
the
the moment.
existing building's 42 feet from the street, and if the front setback is 20. If you look at sheet number 2.
Okay, so
yes.
what I'm looking at, this hashed area on, what sheet is this? Sheet 3. That's actually like a porch area or something?
Yes, yes, but still, that's a 7-foot porch, so you're still at 42, still, it's
Okay,
still
I got it.
34.9 feet from the street.
I got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed, any questions?
No questions.
Bob?
Yeah, a couple questions. I know you're working out whatever the agreement is on the shared parking, but do you know that if the adjacent property owner actually has a permit to have parking on Cycle Ave? To allow parking on Cycle Ave?
I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware that
So
he
when
doesn't have.
you look at the plan, unless something's changed, it looks like Cycle Ave was an avenue, was listed in one of the old road books. And I think that the parking that's on there now, the line parking, was probably added after the last purchase.
We,
Do you know what Cycle Ave is for?
I believe he owns all sides of Cycle Avenue.
But,
So if it's still a public way, I'm not sure of that.
so I don't know if he would find out you, but I'd like to just find out a little bit more about Cycle Ave, just to see if he was even allowed to stripe it. It looked like the Island Queen lot has a gate there, so do they have any kind of rights to the
Okay,
Ave?
you're referring to the easterly side of Cycle Avenue.
So on that portion, there looked like there was a gate.
I-
Do you know what the gate was for?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the gate's for. But I think we're, the 5 spaces on the eastern side of Cycle Avenue, if they're there, we would use them if they're available. If not there, the agreement is to have 12 available parking spaces in the rear. I think 9
Yeah,
right now.
so my question would just be, we could find out later on, can he even do that on Cycle Avenue?
Yeah, I can't answer this question. I'm not sure if there's any,
Did you have any plans to meet that 240-108C? There doesn't seem there's any kind of a loading zone, or is there any?
I haven't checked into, I'll check into that. I'm not sure
Yeah,
if
so,
it's
so,
required.
so it's 240-108-1C. We've had an issue as of late, because trucks keep getting bigger and everyone needs deliveries, that a lot of the vehicles, especially on Main Street, can't get into the properties.
Right.
So it sees if you can work some area there so that they have a standing area, so that they're not backing in and out of the public way.
If you look at this, yeah, we'll have to, you can go around the building in the,
So I don't see any kind of a loading zone at all. Would there be any place where,
okay. I'll check into it. I'll check into that section.
and then on the business redevelopment district where you park in the rear and side yards, usually the side yard is past the front facade of the building. So does that first handicap space still meet business
The first
redevelopment?
handicapped, it's within that 40, but I mean, with the handicap spaces, most of the time, the handicap spaces are vacant, so it's available, it's there, but
No, I just wondering, does that meet the bylaw on parking where it's not behind the front facade of the building?
if you extend, I mean, the first one, the loading area would be, because if the second floor porch, which extends, it's an overhang over the building,
Oh,
is
over the
part of
front.
the building, yes.
What's the 12-foot opening on the front near the signage for?
The adjacent owner wanted to keep that 12 feet open. I'm not, because right now, it's all open between the two properties, so.
So regarding just because we're figuring out where the parking will eventually be, how does that building on that side get access to the back of their building? Will they have rights over this land?
The building, adjacent building?
So the adjacent building, so when I drove by to the site visit, the adjacent building looks like it has a couple parking spaces in front.
The one with the.
The bait shop is
Yeah,
in
the
there?
bait shop, yeah.
And then it looks like the building comes right up to the lot line, and then they've got their dumpsters and everything else in back.
In the
So-
back.
So how can they still access that? Do they have
Well,
access?
this is the same owner as Cycle Avenue, so he's gonna have an easement, so.
Over
the-
your property?
Yes, that's the agreement, so this way we can get the 9 parking spaces in the back, so basically that's what's happening.
Okay, so besides the parking agreement, then there'll be an easement over your property to
Correct.
get to the
Yes,
property on the
the
back?
reciprocal easement, yes.
And where was the, oh, there's the dumpster in back. On the mechanicals, just because we saw this on another property, where you have the sidewalks around the building, are there any mechanicals that are gonna be placed on the sidewalks?
The,
Like compressors or,
No, in this case, if you look at the second floor, we do have a flat area,
Yeah,
and we can, because the addition doesn't extend over the second floor, because we wanted to keep the second floor footprint a lot smaller than the first floor, so the not the third floor, which, well, it's 1.5 stories, so the attic space won't be more than 50% of the second floor. So we only, there's a flat area on the, if you,
so but the sidewalk in back will be clear, you won't
will
have
be
to
clear.
place anything on it?
Yes, yes. So we have plenty of room on the second floor.
Yeah, that's the only questions I would have for now, and I think you may want to look into also, because it seems odd that there's a gate where that parking lot is in back,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you might want to see if anyone has rights over where you're placing your parking.
Right, I mean, adding the 9 parking spaces in the back with the 28, we'll have 37 parking spaces, which is more than what we need, so we don't.
I just mean when you're going over your agreements with them, to
Yeah,
find out
okay,
what the
just,
road is.
this is for the attorneys, I guess.
Yeah, I'd find out if he can park there, if he has a
Okay.
permit for it, and on that gate in back, which looks like it's to another property, do they have any rights over it? Because if they do, you wouldn't be able to put parking spaces in front of
Okay.
them.
Well, he's given, I'm assuming that his attorney is looking at this, he's given permission to park on his.
I would have your
property.
attorneys look at it also. I have both attorneys.
Okay.
Anything else, Bob?
That's it for now.
Mary?
Yeah, just two quick questions. What are the planned hours of the restaurant?
The restaurant, I'm not 100% sure yet, but they'll be serving lunch and dinner. So, but most of the work, I think it'll be dinner. So the peak will be after, around 5 or after 5 o'clock.
And then, I had a little note. Was there something about getting rid of sheds?
Shed?
Sheds?
N-
No?
No.
I must have made an error. That's it.
Thank you, Mary. So do you have a tenant lined up to be,
I don't believe so.
okay. Any other questions from the board?
I've looked at just lighting, is it all just downward?
Yes, no spillage of lights on. I'm not sure if we I think, I can't remember if we submitted the lighting plans through site plan review, but yes, all lighting will be shielded, so there'll be no spillage of lights on private properties or on the streets. And you could add this to your conditions, so standard, so.
And just to confirm, so on the 44 seats plus the residences, what is the total amount of parking spaces that you need?
29 parking spaces.
So 29 total for the 44 seats and the residences?
Correct. There's a parking table on data on sheet 3. It breaks down the restaurant is one space for each 2 seats. That requires 22 parking spaces, and
Yeah.
then for the bedrooms, for the apartments, it's 1 per bedroom. There's total of 6 bedrooms, that's 28 parking spaces.
That's all I have.
Okay. Does members of the public have any questions, comments, concerns regarding this project? Seeing none, back to the board. I think we should note that. Are we still waiting for, we are still waiting for planning board?
Yeah.
All right, so we're still waiting for the planning board site plan review. I think we've asked for a few things for you to look into, so we'd be looking to continue it. We'll also need you to execute an extension that we have here that you can sign. I think you have an understanding of what the board's looking for in terms of the next hearing. Looking into the Cycle Ave issue with the parking. Once you do execute that parking agreement, I think it would be helpful to send it along to the board as well. I know that you said you were gonna send it to the planning board. And looking into the loading zone issue, 240-108, was it 1C, Bob?
Yeah, it's 108-1C.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I had that right. Any
And
other?
I guess also just find out if, and I don't know who we'd find out from, but do you need a permit to actually park on Cycle Ave? Because if so, then the adjacent owner would have to get a permit first, and then,
Does that come down to whether it's a public way or
I
private? They
just,
own the land.
I don't know what the rules are. I've personally never seen parking put across anyway,
That's true.
but, I mean, in the back, on the plan, it shows that the parking spaces take up the entire width.
Yeah, it's good.
And then I don't even know if that affects on the side, on that easterly drive, with the parking spaces sideways with the bank, what's the required width on that just for exit? Is it usually 14 or?
Usually, one way is a 12-foot minimum
feet?
lane, yeah, we do have that. They already striped, I mean, they're there, they're existing, I don't know what.
I know he
You know,
did,
yeah,
just so you know, yeah,
No, I-
you wouldn't know,
I
I just
know.
don't.
I mean,
I think it was done.
We
after-
don't really have to get into that at all, because we don't need those parking spaces, you know, but it's not for us to say take them, you know, we don't own Cycle Avenue, so.
But you will need them for the back spaces.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. When's your next meeting with the planning board?
We're done with the planning board, they closed the public hearing, so they're just waiting to get the agreement so they can vote on the.
Right, so they'll,
So I don't need to, they closed the public hearing, they already approved the plans, so.
They'll have to open it to
So
vote, though.
I'm not sure if you can put those conditions that, you know, you're saying you approve contingent on getting the agreement, the parking agreement approved by the planning board, or I'm not sure, you know.
we
if you-
typically don't take action on a project that has concurrent jurisdiction with the planning board
Okay.
until we actually receive their
Their approval,
final decision.
okay.
Noreen, do you have any idea when they might get
I
it to us?
think I heard the end of August.
The end of
that
August?
They were looking at their second meeting in August.
Yeah.
So what would our date be if we,
I don't know, maybe the 19th?
September 19th looks like a good date.
Yeah,
I think
here
that gives
first.
enough time for the planning board to vote and
September 19th.
the issues that we asked you to look into. We would need a motion.
so then I'll make a motion to continue to September 19th?
Second. You available?
I just checked my calendar, I'm not available that date, so.
What's the next?
We haven't picked a date beyond that.
Uh,
We can pick one.
I mean, if you,
September
October
5th's
3rd?
pretty busy. Do you want to go further out?
So the next one would be, the next one would be
Yeah.
what, October 3rd?
I mean, I guess you could try the 5th. It's gonna be,
26th?
What was wrong with the 5th? Just not enough time?
There's a lot of stuff.
5th works for me,
Busy night.
You mean the 19th? Yeah, we can't do the 5th.
Can you meet all the stuff for the 5th?
sure.
The planning board won't even have their stuff, she said, till the end of August.
Right,
So we're,
Could be the day after.
so we're looking further out.
Yeah, we're close to
What about the-
finalizing the agreement, so I mean, if the 5th works, if you have a available spot on the 5th would be great.
it's in September.
so then October 3rd. So if we can't do the 19th, we'd have to do October 3rd.
Hmm.
Should we try for the 5th? And he can always,
No, our choice
Ask
is
for
the 19th or
continuation.
the 3rd.
Well,
Our choice is September 19th or August
if the
3rd.
board meets on the 4th, we could meet the deadline for the 5th, right?
Well, no, planning board won't have their information till the end of August.
So
So we'd be moving into September.
that's what we're talking, oh, wait a minute, aren't we talking September 5th?
So with our schedule now, we can't fit it on the 5th, because we've got a full docket. So the next choice would be September 19th, but Mr. Chulub can't make the 19th. So the next choice from that is October 3rd.
So is that a motion?
So I'd make a motion to continue to October 3rd.
Second.
Motion was made by Bob and second by Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And we will need you to execute
Sure.
this extension here that I'm just filling out now. Thank you. Okay.
Ready for North Main?
Yep, up next we have application 40-19, 10 North Main Street in Falmouth.
So application number 40-19, being all persons deemed affected by the Board of Appeals under Section 11 of Chapter 40A of the Mass General Laws, you are hereby notified that Joe Sade of Falmouth, Mass. applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance pursuant to Sections 240-68 and 240-203 of the Code of Falmouth to allow a new canopy structure over gasoline pumps and island to be within the front yard setback on subject property known as 10 North Main Street. Let's see here. From engineering, the application was reviewed only for impacts to the public rights-of-way and public utilities. North Main Street is a public right-of-way in this area. No alterations are proposed to the right-of-way. Any change within the right-of-way would require filing a permit with the engineering division. Any connections or alterations to public utilities would require permission from the appropriate town department. The project must not direct any stormwater runoff to public property, abutters, or rights-of-way. Fire department, no comment. Water, no comment. Assessor, no comment. Health, no comment. Planning, no comment. Historical Commission, a certificate of appropriateness from the Historical Commission is attached. And I'll read that briefly. Dear Michael, at its meeting of April 2nd, 2019, the Falmouth Historical Commission voted to approve the application for a certificate of appropriateness under the Falmouth Historic Bylaw established under MGL Chapter 40C for a gas station roof canopy at 10 North Main Street as submitted by Johnny Hatem, trustee, on February 7th, 2019, with the following findings. At the March 19, 2019 meeting, the applicant, Johnny Hatem, trustee, proposed a new roof canopy to an existing gas station currently without a canopy. The applicant proposed a 24 by 50-foot canopy with a gable roof with an option to change to a hipped roof with PVC trim and hardy plank siding. The commission asked the applicant to reduce the footprint of the canopy, revise the gable to a hipped roof, provide site lighting and specifications, and propose different finished products that match the exterior gas station building materials. Commission continued the hearing to allow the applicant to revise plans, and at the April 2nd, 2019 meeting, the applicant provided the recommended changes that the commission had suggested and proposed the following. Reduce the canopy to 22 feet by 46-foot footprint, revised hip roof, aluminum trim, and brick veneer for canopy column base. The commission then approved the project based on the revised site plans. The proposed work must be done in accordance with the documentation submitted at the time of the application. And that's it.
Okay, for the applicant?
Again, good evening, Mr. Chairman, member of the board. My name is Hal Chuba. I'm a consulting engineer, and I'm here representing the applicant on this application, Mr. Sadi. This site is the existing gas station located at 10 North Main Street at the intersection of North Main and Depot Ave. The site measures approximately 0.34 acres and located in the B2 zoning district. This site is also located within the historic district. It's bound to the north by Depot Ave, to the east by North Main Street, and to the south and west by developed properties. The applicant is proposing to install a 22 by 46 canopy structure over the existing fueling pad area. The proposed canopy would be placed 7 feet away from the street line where 30 feet is required. The canopy layout, architectural design, and construction materials were approved by the Falmouth Historical Commission, and as you read, you have the certificate of appropriateness attached to the file. The lot size location of existing fueling pad and pumps and building structures on the property would prohibit the placement of the new canopy in any other locations than what is shown on the plans. Basically, you have a fueling pad area, and you need to put a canopy on top of it. That's the only place that it can go. So there's no way around not getting a relief from the setback for, if this board wanted to pursue that route. In addition, an overhead canopy structure is a crucial component of the gas station business in order to offer protection against the elements for clients and workers. Without it, it would be hard for the owner to compete with other gasoline filling stations which offer such protection, and it would present a financial hardship for the business owner to sustain a profitable operation. This is typical. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm sure there's other gas stations around in town, but if you drive, and you see most of the gas station business, the canopy is right on top of the fueling area. It's closer to the street line. This is the nature of the business. Finally, the proposed canopy structure design and architecture would be in harmony with the surrounding neighborhood and would not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. It's a nice element to add to the site. It matches the design of the building. It was approved by Historical Commission. We choose to go to Historical because we figured if Historical says no, even if you guys said yes, it's not gonna go. So, but unfortunately, this is the only place we can place the canopy, and we're here. We kindly ask this board to favorably approve or look at this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary, would you like to start us off?
I don't have any questions.
Bob?
No questions.
I think it'll be an improvement. Look, I think it's gonna look nice.
Ken, anything? Oh, I'm sorry.
So just to get it out there, we're always concerned about giving variances because the requirements are a little more stringent. You're arguing that the existing gas tanks and fueling pumps, which are structures.
And buildings, correct.
And building, which
Yes.
are structures.
Yes,
Would make it impossible to locate this.
correct. Unless you knock down a building and push the pumps back to meet the
And
setbacks.
there was never a canopy over these at any time in the
No,
past?
unfortunately, no.
All right,
I'm happy, no other questions.
And if I might add, the lighting isn't, we did submit a lighting plan that there'll be no spillage of lighting over the sidewalks or the adjacent property, so that's a concern also.
James?
That was my question. No questions, thank you.
Thank you.
And do you have any, it's a pretty old gas station. Do you have any idea how long it's operated as a gas station?
How long?
Yeah.
It's been operating since the 60s, but I believe the tanks were upgraded, the double wall, the tanks are double wall fiberglass. The building itself was built in the 60s, but it's a block building with brick. I mean, it's not, it's old, but it's fine. There's no threat to safety or to the public.
Oh, I wasn't worried about any structural aspect.
Yeah,
I
but
was
the
just curious
tanks-
How long it's been in
Yeah,
operation.
yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Any members of the public have any questions, comments, concerns regarding this project? Seeing none, back to the board.
I think I'd move to close.
Second.
Second.
Okay, Ken, and I'll give that to Jerry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
How would you like to proceed?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Jerry and Ed? All right, findings?
It receives a certificate of adequacy from the Historical Commission, appropriateness from Concom.
From Historical Commission.
That's- It meets 240-203 because of circumstances relating to existing structures.
Okay,
Meets 240-68. Setback will be 7 feet.
improves usability for sure.
The revised canopy will be 22 by 46 by 21 2 inches.
What appropriateness, it's beautiful.
All right. Anything else for findings?
That's enough.
We could say the lighting plan shows no spillage of light onto adjacent lots.
Okay. Anything else? About conditions?
You do approved plans as approved by Falmouth Historical Commission, certificate of appropriateness.
Okay. Anything else? All right, so that was,
No, just when during construction, no vehicles shall be placed on any, that's an intersection there, right? Isn't that a corner?
it is a corner, yeah.
So just make that all construction vehicles are kept on site or out of, I
Public
guess,
ways.
public ways.
All right, so that was a motion to approve made by Jerry and second by Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're unfortunately.
Pass them down. And I knew I would eventually lose the rubber band. I don't know where these rubber bands go.
All right, up next, we have application 43-19, Curly, trustee, 152, 132, 116, 100, 82, and 81 Broken Bow Lane in East Falmouth.
Okay, so application number 43-19. Being all persons deemed affected by the Board of Appeals under Section 11 of Chapter 48 of the Mass General Laws, you are hereby notified that William F. Curley III, trustee of East Falmouth, Mass., is filed an appeal with the Falmouth Town Clerk pursuant to MGL 40A, Sections 8 and 15, and 240-202 of the Code of Falmouth, appealing a condition of the building permits. The subject properties are 152, 132, 116, 100, 82, and 81 Broken Bow Lane, East Falmouth, Mass. The only other correspondence was really from Frank Duffy, so
Okay.
I think originally this had to do with standing. Frank had chimed in that he wasn't sure if the appeal had standing, and he had originally referred to a case from 1883. Council submitted a different case that was enacted in 1907, which would prevail over the previous case law, which should allow the appeal to be heard.
Okay.
In other
And-
words, Frank thinks it has standing.
His case law was older.
I'm
So I
sure-
just,
I'm-
I
I'm
missed
sure-
that part, it was a little quiet, so.
So you submitted the case law that was more recent
Yep.
than town council? Town council had
So we can
originally
move
said that
forward?
you, yeah, it had originally said you wouldn't have standing to move
Yep.
forward.
Okay,
He's now said that with what you've submitted, that
Great.
we would have standing to move
one
forward.
less thing I have to talk about tonight.
Sure. Unless you still think it's an issue.
No, I don't think it's an issue at all. And actually kind of relieved it isn't. So I'm Patricia McCardle, I'm an attorney in Mattapoisett. I represent Green Meadow Realty Trust that owns these lots that is subject of the appeal. William Curley is the trustee, he's here in the audience in the back. Just to give you a little bit of background, I had submitted a packet, I brought extra copies. Did everybody on the board get a copy of my letter with the exhibits attached?
The August 1st one?
It's dated July 31st, 2019, a letter.
Yeah, that was too. We also have in the file the August 1st
Okay, just want to make
one.
sure. Okay, so just by way of background, Broken Bow is a 1969 subdivision. This board previously conducted a hearing between 2016 and 2017, trying to determine whether or not these lots were grandfathered in for zoning purposes. And ultimately, the hearings were lengthy. There was no input by the Board of Health. There was no input by the Planning Board. And ultimately, this board issued a unanimous decision in 2017 that these were, in fact, grandfathered lots for zoning purposes. After that hearing, the petitioner, Mr. Curley, spoke to the health agent, who said that denitrification systems would not be required. So therefore, he went forward. He had the plans drafted for a non-denitrification system for all of these lots. And subsequently, he purchased the lots. So based on your decision, based on the healthcare agent's decision, he went forward and purchased these 6 lots. March 25th, 2019, he applied for these 6 building permits. The building inspector has 30 days to approve or deny the permit applications, but 53 days later, on 5/17/19, the building inspector approved the permits, but with a condition that the septic designs had to be revised to reflect a denitrification system. And this is the subject of our appeal, is that condition. To be clear, there was recently a newspaper article talking about grandfathering status. This isn't about grandfathering status, like we're past grandfathering status. This is talking about the applicability of this particular statute that's in the Coastal Pond Overlay District. So that Coastal Pond Overlay District, which overlays most of your town, requires a development impact analysis to be issued to the planning board for any proposed development of 5 lots or more. So the particular language of proposed development, it doesn't say this is for all developments, it says for any proposed developments. When the planning board receives a proposed development and receives this analysis, they may or may not require a denitrification system. But there is a vetting process, there is a hearing process that the planning board goes through to determine. It's not an automatic issuance of a requirement or a condition that there is always a denitrification system.
Some form of mitigation.
Petitioner's lot was not a proposed subdivision. This was an old subdivision of 1969. He was not required to submit this developmental impact analysis to the planning board, so petitioner never entered the planning board's jurisdiction. But subsequently, the building inspector made the denitrification system an automatic requirement, which is not part of your bylaws. That is not an automatic requirement just because you're in this overlay district. So, and I would suggest to you, which was the crux of a lot of my letter to you, that the past does not dictate that this bylaw has required prior owners of lots in subdivisions of 5 or more to have this denitrification system. So think of all the developments that have happened in this town in the past prior to 1999. Those vacant lots are purchased, somebody wants to develop, build a house on it. They have not been required to have a denitrification system. Until now, out of nowhere, the building inspector, and we think it's just in his mind when 6 came to his desk at once, that the amount of the permits triggered in his head, oh, it must require a denitrification system. But if we really believe that if Mr. Curley had gone in for just 1 permit, it wouldn't have triggered that thought process. We really think this is an error. So in my letter to you, I had cited, first off, 4 properties in your packet that Mr. Curley knew of personally that were not required to have denitrification systems. These lots were created in subdivisions of 5 lots or more, but when a permit was applied for, no denitrification system was required.
Can I
Yes.
interrupt? I
Yes.
thought I had your letter. I don't.
Oh,
I appreciate it. I don't know how many else.
Yeah.
need 2 more, another one? 3?
Yes. I had another letter.
And the standing.
Yes, there was a standing letter. These have to get recorded in, or do you have these?
Just gonna pass them back.
Stamp one
Okay.
in.
I already have the letter in here.
And I have a few more here if there's not enough.
Or just pass the stamp one in.
top of what you have, so I'm just gonna leave it.
You have one more.
One more, sure.
Oh, I'm
ahead.
sorry.
That's okay.
Take it.
Oh, here it is, we got it. Never mind. We're good,
Okay.
I guess.
So on page, on the fourth page, there's just those 4 lots. Those are the lots that the petitioner, Mr. Curley, had recalled himself. One of them he was involved in. One is in this particular neighborhood, which was 28 Broken Bow, not required to have a denitrification system. And this isn't just a oops, well, one slipped by. All of these lots have never been required, with these older subdivisions of 5 or more, to have a denitrification system installed when they went to get their permit, even post-1999, when the Coastal Pond Overlay District was implemented. I have brought here today, just to also kind of bring in this point, and I've cited some of this in my letter, I have here Thomas Bunker of BSS Design Engineering, who I think you're all familiar with, who has been practicing here in the area for decades. He also was surprised to see that this requirement was on this lot. On page 3, off the top of his head, he sent to me 5 lots that he knew right away. These ones did not require denitrification systems. Sent me the copies of the approved septic plans, which I have attached as exhibits. And I'd like him to come up here and speak to you a little bit about his experience in the application of this bylaw.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Tom Bunker. I'm the founder of BSS Design. Some 32 years ago, so I've been here a while, and it happened to be 1987 when we started, and I think the Coastal Pond Overlay District went into effect in 1988. So I've been here just about as, well, 1 year longer than the overlay district has been in effect. We've never had a situation, we've done hundreds, well over 1,000 site plans throughout Falmouth. Never had a situation where we required, just as a requirement, to put in a denitrification system on a vacant lot purely because the lot was in the Coastal Pond Overlay District. Even on lots, vacant lots in subdivisions which are larger than 5 acres, larger than 5 lots. I can mention up in Gray Rocks. One of the lots we have here is Gray Rocks up in North Falmouth. We've done some there. They're in the Coastal Pond Overlay District. I think for Wild Harbor River. No requirement for denitrification. Bonnie Lane, that's over in the Wacoit Bay Coastal Pond Overlay District, I believe. We've done several there, even this past year. No requirement for denitrification, and that's more than 5 lots, more than 5 acres in that subdivision. Actually just thought of now Pine Meadows off of Hayway Road, Hayway in the Carriage Shop Road area. We did all of those lots for one developer. No denitrification on those. And if you look back, all of Seacoast Shores, I don't know how many lots are in there. One of the lots we have mentioned, Knollwood Drive, and that's definitely in Coastal Pond Overlay District, and there was no requirement for any denitrification. Those are only vacant lots. Of course, we've done lots of upgrades and others in the Heights, Mara Vista, before the sewer went in, all over. It's never been a requirement for denitrification, except when there's some other underlying reasons, such as being too close to a wetland, or let's say an accessory apartment, which came up earlier tonight, where it's in the bylaw that denitrification is required if you're in a Coastal Pond Overlay District. But basically, yes, it was a surprise to me because it has just never been required before this type of application.
Thank you.
Could I ask him a question?
Oh,
Or do you
sure.
want me to wait? Are you familiar with the layer cake system The reason I ask, it can be put in, it achieves denitrification, and it may be cheaper, or as, might be $1,000 more, I'm told, than a regular septic tank when you put it in a new one.
We did, my engineer Jeff, who couldn't be here tonight, Jeff Ryther, has designed at least one for the West Falmouth Harbor pilot project. So we are familiar with it, but, yeah.
Any other questions?
Any questions?
Sure. So for any of those examples you've cited, were they building more than one structure at a time?
In Bonnie Lane, I believe, well, depends what you mean by at one time. The building process overlapped in several, I'm sure, but I don't think they applied for multiple at the same time.
I think the intent of the Coastal Pond Overlay District bylaw was if you were creating a new subdivision
Yes.
and building new structures, that you would, that it was either 5 acres or more or 5 lots or more, that you would have to then
Except that the
at least
bylaw,
create a, some kind of analysis that could be considered by the permitting board, and then it was up to the permitting board to decide whether or not you needed to add enhanced treatment of some kind, or limit bedrooms. There were many options that were possible. It wasn't just, I agree with you. What I'm trying to establish is, for this project, these buildings exist?
they
they
do
do
not,
not
they do not exist. They're,
So you have 5 vacant lots?
yes.
So it's a little bit ambiguous, I think.
Well, it's not a proposed subdivision, and the bylaw doesn't refer to structures. It refers only to proposed lots and proposed subdivisions.
Jump in as well, because I would submit to you that it doesn't require when 5 permits are applied for at one time. The trigger is when you have a proposed subdivision. He was not dividing anything. These are existing
So the 5
lots.
vacant lots existed
Correct.
as subdivided lots?
They are already subdivided, right, in 69. You've already said they're grandfathered in. Planning board said nothing in response to that hearing. This is not a Board of Health requirement. This is only a planning board requirement. Planning board didn't have jurisdiction over Mr. Curley at the time that he applied for the permits, because you said it's grandfathered, it's a buildable lot. As far as zoning is concerned, he went to the building inspector, applied for it appropriately, and I think maybe his mistake was applying at 5, more than 5 at once, because it triggered something, I think, in the building inspector's mind. But that's not what your bylaw says. Exactly what you said, it was intended for when a subdivision is created. And that's not what he's doing. He's not creating a subdivision.
So, Ms. McCarroll,
Yeah.
are you familiar with so the town planner, Tom Bott, submitted a letter on July 16th. Have you seen that one?
I have not been afforded the opportunity to see that. I read about some of it in the paper.
All right, so there, it says there's a submittal in the file from July 16th, and it's to the zoning board of appeals from Thomas Bott, town planner, regarding 4319 Curly Broken Bow appeal of a condition of a building permit. And he writes, the Broken Bow subdivision was approved in November of 1969. Given the date of the approval of the development, I believe that the subdivision has exhausted its zoning protection in 1976 and would have to install IA systems if the lots are required to do so by the current zoning bylaw. Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 6, effectively allows a property owner to freeze zoning changes to the subject property for 8 years from the time the plan is endorsed by the planning board. Chapter 48, Section 6, if a definitive plan or preliminary plan followed within 7 months by definitive plan is submitted, the land shown on such plan shall be governed by the applicable provisions of the zoning bylaw in effect at the time of submission for 8 years from the date of endorsement of approval. He has also attached some, it looks like some case law, so you may want to take a look at it.
Well, I would say this, for the most part, I would agree with him. If this bylaw said it applied to all subdivisions, it doesn't. It says for proposed subdivisions. That's what, it's the application of the bylaw itself on its face.
So this mentions approved subdivision. So if Broken Bow was approved in 1969,
The,
and these lots were part of the approval,
but if you go down to procedure, it's very specific of what he was supposed to do if this was a proposed subdivision. He would have had the benefit of going to the planning board and vetting out and saying, these are the pros and cons, and perhaps they, with their discretion, would have said, you don't need a denitrification system. He was not afforded that due process, because your bylaw doesn't require him to go to planning board. Your bylaw doesn't require him to submit that analysis. And there's no automatic requirement that as soon as you have 5 lots, you automatically have to have this denitrification system. It's not as soon as you have it, you are required. It is when you create it, you have to apply and see if you have to have it.
So if
That's the difference.
so if these lots were created back in the 1969 approval,
Yeah.
you're saying that the 8-year protection would not apply?
The 8-year protection, that would apply, and I have said this to Mr. Curley, if this bylaw was different, if it said something different, we would lose. It's not what it says. It says on a proposed subdivision, has absolutely nothing to do with grandfathering. It's the application of the statute on its face. And as a practical matter, which backs us up and corroborates what we're saying, no other prior subdivision has been required to have this denitrification system. In the history of this town, with this overlay district in place, no other lot has been required to have that, except now, all of a sudden it comes out of nowhere and it's being applied differently, which we can't figure out why it's being applied differently than it has been applied historically, which obviously is arbitrary and capricious in my mind in an application to my client. There's certainly some financial hardships there. If I may, I would also like to bring up Brian Bork, who in the letter I had cited incorrectly. He is a licensed building commissioner, but at the time that he worked for your town as an inspector, he was not the building commissioner. However, he has put together his own list to prove our point again, that all other prior existing lots in the coastal pond overlay district have not been required to have this denitrification system.
Could I ask a clarifying
Yep.
question? Sure. Well, one's an observation. If we made historic mistakes, then there were mistakes that maybe they should apply. I'm not saying we did, but it's just because you don't get caught robbing a bank doesn't mean you didn't rob the bank. Next time you get caught. I'm concerned about this definition of protection of the protection of the 8 years, you know, that I will admit it's vague. And it would appear that we still may be able to require it under our interpretation. We may. I would also submit, and I don't know if the other board members would agree, or if the applicant would agree, that if a pilot system is as cheap as a Title V system, we may be able to, I don't know, I've been told it is by some experienced people. And this is subject to discussion. We have a continuation, we come back. If they can do it as cheap, we don't hammer this out in court.
I definitely appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate the bank robbery example. But I would suggest the clear intent of this bylaw has been applied correctly all these years. That would be my interpretation of that, my application. But I would like to bring up Brian Bork, if I may, because I think he would have a lot of insight since he worked for this town. And actually, what I'd like to also submit to you, give you some more paper, this is the pile that Mr. Bork had compiled of recent building permits that were issued that were not required to have denitrification systems. He has subsequently gone through it and found out some of them that were listed on here, his initial list, were not in the coastal overlay district, so I simply crossed those out to make sure it was completely.
If I could
Yeah.
just, I don't think the issue, individual house lots within subdivisions that were formed previously, we absolutely cannot require that. I mean, that's clear. There's no ambiguity about it. All of these examples are for individual house lot construction.
Correct.
Within subdivisions. I think the only issue that makes this a little ambiguous, that I'm not clear on, is because there was no construction in this entire subdivision.
No, not true. Not true. There are many buildings in there. In fact, one of the abutters who owns one of the buildings came here
So,
tonight
but
and didn't stay.
this is
but-
a block of 5 contiguous lots?
No, it's, I guess you would call it checkerboarded. They were trying to maintain a grandfather status, so they only owned every other one. So there are plenty, half the development is built, half the development is built. And I would suggest you too, I think it's Bonnie Lane, there was a couple going on at the same time, or they're going on right now. So at what point do you have more than one going on that you think that would trigger this bylaw? But your bylaw doesn't say more than one permit going on, it says a proposed subdivision of 5. But I'd give you these examples, and I'll let Mr. Borg speak for himself.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. For the record, Brian Bork. I live in Coit. So this, in my perception of this and review, this is clearly a misinterpretation. I mean, the bylaw clearly states that it's for proposed subdevelopments, and that's the way it's always been enforced. It's reviewed by the planning board at the time the subdevelopment is proposed. And that's why the 8-year thing is irrelevant and all that other stuff, because this is not something that gets applied when a building permit is issued. I worked in the building department for 8 years. I reviewed thousands and thousands of plans. And never, ever, ever, 100% did this ever come up, because it's not within the building commissioner's jurisdiction. It's not his authority. It is something that the planning board has authority over at the time the subdevelopment is created. Nothing to do with a permit being issued. That's completely independent. So I went through and looked back for the last 2 years, 2018, 2019, and cross-referenced new building applications that were in the overlay district, that were 5 or more.
It's not
that were
restricted to the plan.
Subdevelopments created before 1969, so they fill all the exact same parameters of Broken Bow. Made sure everything matched perfectly so we can compare apples to apples. Not one of those was required to do a denitrification system, nor was it ever brought up. Now, in my history of 8 years reviewing plans, I can say 100% with absolute certainty, not once was it ever brought up, and not one was ever required to do a nitrification system. Because again, it's not a bylaw based off when a permit's issued. It's a bylaw that has authority when the subdevelopment is created. That's the only time it applies. We're past that. That was done in 1969. That's why statute of limitations has nothing to do with it.
Special permit,
Every other zoning
applicable
bylaw that
review
exists
board.
that doesn't relate to the
It's-
development or proposal of it, you're right. You would lose your protection to that after 8 years. There's no question about that. You're aware of that. But this doesn't pertain to that. It doesn't pertain to the issuance of a permit, and it's never, ever been done. It's been done correctly all these years. This is a misinterpretation of it. And as she said before, just because the number 6 popped in somebody's head and it's more than 5, it's a misinterpretation. The verbiage in that bylaw is crystal clear. It only applies to proposed, at the time it's proposed. And on the D-night, you're right, they do make a cheaper one, Mr. Thomas. The only problem you gotta remember is when you do a D-night, regardless of the initial upfront cost, there's a cost forever, because the system has to be monitored and maintained. So there's annual fees that come out for the rest of the, you know, the life of the septic system.
I had a follow-up question.
Sure.
If the individual came and applied for single permits, one at a time, this might be more for discussion, I think we'd probably approve it and not even look at this. And I'm gathering, I understand what you're saying, when it was proposed back then. So that's the quandary I have, I'm thinking out loud, that he came in for 5 instead of 1 5 times in a row.
Right, so if he came in for 1, just like you're saying, we wouldn't be here. It wouldn't be on the building permit. This wouldn't be an issue.
But it is irrelevant in the sense that nowhere in the bylaw, nowhere in the building code, nowhere in anything does it say anything about how many building permits you apply for, triggering anything. It's never done by the number, because a lot of subdevelopments go in and they come in, do 3, 4, 5 at a time, you know, and then they overlap them. I mean, that's common practice go through and overlap that.
So they started constructing in this development years ago.
Years ago, back in the late 60s, early 70s, they built some. But again, just in 2014, in this subdevelopment, 28 Broken Bow, a permit was applied for. Nothing was ever mentioned about it. Again, it's completely, if you review all the facts that you have in the zoning bylaw that's governed by the plan, you'll see it's a misinterpretation. The verbiage is very clear. It's at the time of the proposal. You can't go retroactively back, because again, we've never been afforded an opportunity to do an analysis, and we can't do it now because it's an existing subdevelopment.
Any questions on this side? Mary?
Yeah, you applied for 6. What was the reason to bundle the 6 together?
I think I would have to refer to the petitioner, Mr. Curley.
And you'll have to come up to the podium, Mr. Curley. Thank you.
My name is William Curley, for the record. I live at 40 Green Harbor Road, East Falmouth. I'm a resident here for 20 years, built several homes here. The reason for applying for the 6 was, right from the beginning, I've been trying to build what the town needs, is affordable small houses. And have any of the members driven through and seen the frames that I have up right now? Probably consider those on the smaller side of some of the stuff that's been built in this town. There's no garages, they're 26, 34 capes, 3 bedrooms, just modest houses so that maybe some of the younger people in town can buy a home here and stick around versus having to go to Rochester or Middleborough, someplace like that. So the reason was, my hopes were to be able to start like 3 houses, which I have, and then have the permits in place that if somebody wanted another house, I was just ready to move to the next one. So that's my reasoning behind it. Just recently at the lumberyard, I have somebody who's interested in the house, an employee who lives walking distance, who works walking distance. I thought that was pretty cool, moving from Mashpee to Falmouth. Good thing for everybody, good for them, and you know, just trying to keep the prices of the homes affordable. And by having to put these denitrification systems in when I was told on numerous occasions that I didn't have to do it, was a shock to me. So, any other questions while I'm up here?
I have one question. How many lots are in there altogether?
There's like 13 lots left.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
But the total, are you asking for the total development, even the ones that are?
Oh, just the new ones.
Just the newer ones, huh?
That includes the 3 you already got going.
That's correct, sir. That's correct, yeah.
So I understand the subdivisions from the 1960s and it's, basically, it's not complete. The road would still have to be extended down to those spare lots and,
It has been.
yeah. In terms of, so I mean, when a subdivision is usually laid out, there's a developer, they maintain rights. They eventually give that to maybe a homeowners association if there's any restrictive covenants involved. Is any of that involved here?
Not to my knowledge. It's a private road. You know, all the easements for the road, the electrical easements, the water easements, those have all been in place since like 1970. The telephone poles were put in exactly where the electric company had their easements. Didn't change anything. Mr. Bunker kept all the departments in the town up to date, provided them with plans on what he was doing. He got their comments back. He altered plans for them, water department, DPW on drainage, things like that. They worked together on it, so, you know.
Okay, so to your knowledge, there's been no rights originally from the developer given to any homeowners association?
No.
Any other,
No, it's like Homestead, it's like all the neighborhoods.
anyone
around.
else on the street?
Yep.
Okay.
Who plows the street or picks up the trash?
The town of Falmouth does. The town of
They
Falmouth does.
plow a
In
private
fact,
right
now-
of way?
In
Okay.
fact, now the garbage truck can turn around. Before they couldn't, they would have to back out of the road to the very beginning of it and then do a three-point turn, so.
And how much of the houses you mentioned before?
How much am I gonna be asking?
Yeah.
Right around 400,000, which
I'm just nosing, as, you know.
there's nothing out there in that price range, you know, in terms of, and my goal is to maybe keep 2 of them as rentals, because there's a shortage of rentals as well. I read in the paper every month, planning boards, you know, we need more affordable housing. Well, here I am trying to do something, what in my opinion, is the right thing. You know, I could have gone in and done colonials and tried to push that price range, but I didn't do that, you know.
Any other questions from the board?
Well, I would like, you talked about proposed subdivision. Where's the exact wording in the bylaw?
I did bring the bylaw.
I have the bylaw in front of me.
I highlighted it because I thought you might ask me. So if I could just have a moment to find it. My little highlight job. So under the procedure, so 240-99.
Mm-hmm.
Are you there already?
Yep.
Okay. So under that A, it says, all such development proposals listed in 240-98 above. That 240-98 above is where that 5-lot requirement is.
Right, but it says
Yeah?
in 24098,
Yeah.
establishment delineation coastal pond overlay district. This article shall apply to all developments listed here, subdivisions greater than 5 lots or greater than 5 acres.
Correct.
The reason this hasn't been applied recently is there haven't been any subdivisions of that size
Yeah.
created.
Right.
But a literal interpretation of this could be that this applies to any subdivision greater than 5
Sorry, go ahead.
acres or 5 lots.
And I would suggest that you have to read the whole statute, which is why when you come down
I
to
have.
99,
So the other thing about the statute,
Yep.
where I will take issue with the building commissioner, it does not say you have to put in a denitrification system.
No, no.
It says you have to file an analysis to
Yes.
show what the nutrient loads are.
Yes.
And then the applicable permitting board, not just the planning board, whatever applicable board is giving permits,
Yes.
looks at that and says what mitigation measures might be required. Those could be a reduction in bedroom count, for example.
Yes.
But I just, I take a little issue with Mr. Bunker's analysis because what's happened is, and this has come up often in discussions with special permits here on individual house lots where they're in the coastal pond overlay district. And the argument has been it's an existing house in an existing subdivision, they want to make a modification, we can't impose this bylaw. This is a little different situation because it's vacant lots in a subdivision that's more than 5 lots.
But if I may bookend just for a second, because exactly what you're saying is what we're saying insofar as like the restrictions down in 240, 100. It's not automatically a requirement. The building inspector has made it an automatic
Yes, I
requirement.
can agree with you on that.
And there's been no vetting process, no due process for Mr. Curley to go through and to
Right.
have a hearing. But I would disagree with you on the other part, but
Of course.
we can agree to disagree.
Prior to purchasing the property,
Mr.
If you
Curley,
if you
again,
want to
if you wanna
testify, you
speak,
got to
you
come
can
up.
Come up to the podium, please.
prior to purchasing the property, a prudent buyer does a due diligence and asks those questions. And I did ask those questions. And I was told it wouldn't be a requirement because it was an existing subdivision, older subdivision.
They didn't happen to write that down anywhere, but
Got that
always
right.
ask for it in writing.
I make a bet I do have that.
Well, but that's why you're here. You're,
Just, keeping my notes.
That's why you're here. You're appealing what, based on the, well, so the building commissioner told you, who told you that?
Board of Health.
Board of Health.
Board of Health, yes.
That's
The-
one
the
board.
The building inspector, he's never issued this condition. The only one who can issue this condition is the planning board.
No, I don't believe that's true. It says the applicable permitting board. So it could be the it could be the zoning board, could be the Board of Health. It's whatever board is providing you with the appropriate permit.
I was never afforded.
But I'm not saying you're wrong about all aspects of what you're arguing. I'm just saying it is not restricted to the planning board.
I would also just kind of book in with Mr. Curley said was when he was informed during the permitting process, he was not going to require that. I mean, he spent money on these plans being told he was not going to be required to have that. Also, I would say that the person who transferred title to him, Stephen Mayette, who's here, he had other buyers prior to Mr. Curley who also vetted those same questions because it's an expense. So every proposed buyer also vetted that, and he can corroborate if you so
How many
wanted to hear.
bedrooms are these homes?
3, right?
3 bedrooms, that's it. You can limit it to 3, that's all they're gonna be. All these homes also have a first floor master. And Patricia's correct, because of how I was directed to do this, with regard to the designs, I spent, I think, $8,600 with Mr. Bunker's firm to do the site plans, the septic designs, and everything that I've done. And now I'm being asked to change them all.
Right.
I just feel that's not fair.
And what would you say the average cost of per lot?
$1,000 would be great. But, no, all the numbers I'm seeing back are all, between $10,000 and $15,000, depending on what system you're going to use.
That's the conventional system.
The conventional is considerably less.
That's for enhanced.
Enhanced.
It's adding 10 to 15,000.
Yes, per lot.
If you do have your notes, when you went through, you keep notes, I would suggest submitting them.
Mr. Carl, listen to the argument. Your position, obviously, in the letter is that this exceeded the permit building commissioner's authority to require this indulgence. Presuming that he does have the authority, or we find case on point, I guess my second question is, number one, in your appeal process, this is what I'm going to take big issue with the building commissioner. For the record, application for the permit was March 25th and no action was taken until March 17th. So you're saying as a matter of law, for 52 days, it had been issued.
An issue.
Mr.
And so therefore, there should be no conditions on it.
Mr. Bork,
Do you have case law?
I did not bring.
That's okay.
I know for a fact I was getting frustrated. Mr. Bork reached out to Boston. Who in Boston?
Brian Bork again. Okay. So the question on that, I mean, again, I am a certified building commissioner with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I still maintain that certification. So it's very clear in the building code, black and white in the administrative section, that a building commissioner has 30 days to review a permit application. After 30 days, I mean, prior to 30 days, he has to submit in writing, and quoting the code sections. Again, another issue with this note on there, he doesn't even give us a code or planning board, zoning board, any section to appeal. We really had to make a leap to figure out what reason he's actually telling us we have to do it, okay? Because he doesn't even state a code section, is one thing. But the building code is very clear that you have 30 days to issue a building permit. And so the question being, yes, I contacted Mark LaPointe, who's a state inspector. State inspectors for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts are given districts. This is his district, Cape Cod. And he expressly said to me, then go, start work. After 30 days, if he hasn't issued a building permit, you're free to start work. That is the process in the building code.
received a call from Mr. Ward who said, go, like Boston gave permission to start construction. And I said, no, I want to do right by the town. So we sat back additional days, and finally, after Brian going in to the building department and seeing the status, he did get the permits.
And just on another level of that, if that case, it says day 31, we start, and then 15 days later, you give us a condition, you can't do that. You know what I mean? If you couldn't get it out on time, just like as you know, you're also on boards. You're required to get it out within your time frame, within your time limit.
Did the building commissioner state any reason why he didn't answer in 30 days?
A reason why?
Did he give any explanation at all why he didn't answer for 52 days?
Any other questions from the board?
Not this time.
Let's turn it to public comment. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding this appeal, I should say? Seeing none, back to the board.
I think we should discuss it. I think there's a,
Yeah, I think we're also we have a lot of stuff to review too with the submittals tonight on the lots and the.
my feeling is that, given the time, I think I agree with the applicant that we may be stretching, and we, if we do have the authority to require it, I'm not sure why we would, given all these other homes. It's only 3 bedrooms, it's not 4 bedrooms. If this isn't a coastal zone overlay, and it gets caught up with the sewer planning or wastewater district, they may be required to upgrade Title V up to enhanced nitrogen system, depending on their plan that they have yet to develop for the sewer service areas and the on-site areas, so.
You're saying retrofit.
Retrofit. But they have the authority.
It'd be better to do it now.
Well, no, I'm just saying, there's a number of reasons why I feel comfortable with not requiring the advanced nitrogen and overruling the commissioners.
They made them put in a sewer.
They could.
Little Pond was about 30,000 a house, right?
Yeah, but that was below 28. No one's gonna propose sewers north of 28.
Not yet, anyway.
It's, somehow, I won't say it.
They might be going east, I don't know about north. So, I mean, their primary argument is, one, the building commissioner acted too late, and then number 2, he exceeded his authority.
I think he
by-
did.
Yes,
Right.
I think we don't have to.
I don't think it's the building commissioner is empowered to impose the requirement. It's the permitting board under the bylaw. There isn't a permitting board for this because it's an existing subdivision, I guess. So it's not the planning board for subdivision approval. There's no special permits being applied for.
Yeah.
I don't see how you get there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of nitrogen mitigation. I have to agree with the applicant.
I tend to agree as well. You guys are in agreement. Well done. And if you know his advocacy on behalf of those alternative systems, I don't know if you do, that's a major concession. by
Counting 3, going for 4.
So, and I tend to agree with Ken.
I agree.
Yeah, I do also, and I think that the, waiting 52 days with a 30-day permit is just ridiculous.
Okay.
So I guess, what do we need a motion to,
Motion
Close
to
the hearing.
close and a motion. to-
okay, I'll move to close. That's
Second.
easy.
Okay, motion to close by Ken and second by Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And?
Motion to override, or what's the correct terminology? We're denying the building commissioner, overriding,
Granting the appeal,
granting the appeal.
right?
Motion to overturn the building commissioner's decision.
I would ask that you say overturn insofar as that condition is
Yes,
concerned.
Title V, advanced nitrogen,
Denitrifications, thank you.
denitrification.
So would anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make it.
Motion was made by Jerry. Is there a
Second.
second? Okay. And it's been so long since we've had one of these. Do we need findings or?
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile to explain
Yeah.
Okay.
Make the decision.
We'll make some findings then.
Timeliness of the issuance of
So
the,
applicant made an application for building permits, did not receive an answer within 30 days. Building commissioner didn't respond till 52 days.
if we leave it at that, it'd be best. No other special permits
Well,
required?
basically, the bylaw does not empower the building commissioner to impose the requirement.
Permitting issue.
The permit issuing board is supposed to, and the only requirement really is that they file some kind of analysis of the nutrient loading.
Hypothetically, if we find out later on through precedent coming down a year or two from now that the building inspector does, do you want to set a precedent that we've already overruled, or you just want to leave it be based on a procedural 52 days? Keep
Well, no, it
quick,
states,
easy, and clean.
it states in the bylaw permitting board.
States it. It states
There is
it.
no permitting board.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Yeah, there's no other special permit required, so
They didn't go for permit through planning because it already existed. They didn't go,
they don't need no special, they do not need any special permit from us, correct?
Or to construct the homes.
Right.
Sometimes less is better.
Yeah,
That's true.
but, I mean,
We could get into it if they did, but they don't. I don't know, I guess, if that a finding, they don't need, there's no need for special permit from this board.
No. We have the building permits.
I think we, to be safe, we may want to draft a positive approval of the applicant, overturn the building commissioner so that we have all our ducks in a row when it comes to the decision versus.
to the language.
I assume that there's a good chance you might get an appeal, so we might as well make sure that we have.
Yeah, Noreen feels, okay.
We should put that up there, so even if it's not a meeting, we should.
I think Noreen has it, I'm not sure. We're denying it, and we're stating the reasons.
I mean, it was beyond the further 30 days, and
Yeah.
and further, it was a misinterpretation of the bylaw, and
Yeah.
like Ken said, it should have gone to
There's
the
no-
appropriate reviewing board rather than a determination of the building commissioner.
And there's no appropriate,
And in this case, it was not in a review.
it's not an
It wasn't
appropriate.
applicable.
I'd like to see it, you know, I'm always in favor of trying to make government better. He wants to start building. I don't see any reason not to approve it tonight.
All right, so we basically have our findings in terms of what we're voting on. So the motion to overturn the building commissioner's decision was made by Jerry and second by Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very, very much.
Anyone want like a 5-minute break? Should we keep on going? It's gonna take a little
Yeah,
bit of
no,
time.
just pass
We
it
got
on.
Green Ocean, I think we should.
We'll take a 5-minute break. we are back, and we have our open meeting items. Number one is voting the minutes from July 11th, 2019. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from,
I think we were gonna table them.
Yeah,
or tabling both, or just one day?
I didn't look at the second one.
Tabling both?
Table both.
Sorry, I misread my note here. All right, so we're gonna table both minutes till next time. Item number two, we have 22-19. Green Ocean Car Wash LLC, 187 T-Ticket Highway and T-Ticket, discuss draft decision with possible vote. So we have our drafts.
Yep.
At a previous meeting, we did direct Noreen to draft a positive decision for tonight with discussion and possible vote.
I think it's only minor, just section 6, it's not the, I think it's the wastewater superintendent that said you had to get a variance for the flow neutral bylaw. But-
So the selectmen also have to give a,
Well, no, the selectmen have to, it's who said it. But that's minor. They have to get it.
So you want to add superintendent?
No, it's, no, it was down here. If, forget it, it's minutia, since we're ready to approve it.
Well, if it's a minor wording correction.
That's all right. Sorry I brought it up. The thing is, I still have to get the variance from the selectmen, no matter who requires it,
Right.
you know.
So you're okay with leaving it as is, Jerry?
Yes,
or-
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Attorney Terry, you're here on behalf of the applicant tonight. Standing in perhaps.
Yeah, Matt Terry from Mount Clower, Falmouth, for the applicant, and the applicant's here as well.
You and Attorney Clower have had an opportunity to review the draft. Is there anything you'd like to point out, any changes, any?
No, we've had an opportunity to review. We're happy with the decision as drafted.
does the board think? Would you like to have a discussion?
I think it looks good. I'd
I
like to
think so.
make a motion to approve,
Second it.
Basically to accept the draft.
to accept the draft.
Okay.
So, motion to approve was made by Bob and second by Ed. I'm sorry, motion
To accept the draft.
motion to accept the draft and vote in favor.
What's the difference between accepting the draft and approving it?
Well, we drafted a positive
Well,
motion
to accept
already,
and
so now
approve.
we're-
How about
To-
that?
To accept and approve. Okay.
How about that precise wording?
So one more time, so motion to accept and approve the draft.
Right.
Second.
Very
So as
good.
soon as the
That's
chairman
final
signs it,
decision.
it can be issued.
Motion was made by Bob and second by Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I will oppose.
What?
But it carries 4-1.
I wish I knew why, but that's okay.
That's all right. So you have it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm curious.
So what do we have left?
Board updates. Any board update? This possible workshop, September 28th.
Does that date work okay for people?
And Ken, I think we discussed this in abstention, but I think you texted
Oh,
me.
and I
that that-
suggested that,
Okay, that was a good day.
right? Didn't I? Yeah, I
think
think
you
that's,
did.
I think you did
Yeah.
over the phone.
I have.
I'm all for it.
I have prior obligation.
Prior engagement.
Well, that's, happens to be the harvest activity at the Barnstable County Fair.
I'd suggest we try it. I mean, I think it might be important for the new members to be there.
Yeah, what's the next thing we got?
7 days later.
October the 5th.
Oh, let's go October 5th.
Is October 5th okay with everyone?
October
Yep.
5th.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I have another.
Can't make that one either?
What dates can you make?
No, anything after that, if it's after. I
Okay,
have
so,
ones before that. too,
12th?
but those just-
Oh, we can't make the 12th.
Jesus.
19th?
Looks like Halloween candy.
Well, I guess it comes down to,
Well, 19?
19th would be the long weekend, Columbus Day.
Yeah.
Or no, that's the week after.
Week after.
Okay, so October 19th?
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Good.
All right.
Is that a good one for everyone?
Yep.
All right, October 19th it is,
Definitive.
definitively. Board discussion regarding the zoning recodification committee. Is there any update?
next meeting,
The mission goes on.
next meeting, what is the 28th of August?
Yes. You can send in your written response.
You'll probably be running the meeting by then if nobody shows up again.
All right. Discussion and vote
So-
reinstating,
Can I ask what time on the 19th?
what time has it been traditionally, 8:30, 9 o'clock?
9?
9
Nine's
o'clock?
fine.
Right.
Are you doing 9?
Yeah.
Not, yeah, 9 o'clock's
Yeah,
good.
that gives Ken time to get the French bakery
Yeah.
stuff.
Time
Yeah,
to
that's
swing by
true.
Pine
Oh, by
Sky.
then, the French bakery might be closed.
Uh-oh.
ZBA,
Then we'll have to change the date.
workshop.
Yeah. Spring's almost nice.
All right, so we have the discussion and vote reinstating administrative approvals by the zoning administrator. So when, and this is for the benefit of our new members, when Sari Boudreau, the former zoning administrator, retired, the board decided to suspend administrative approvals. One, I think we didn't officially have a zoning administrator for a period of time, and then two, to allow the new zoning administrator, who turned out to be Maureen, to get herself up to speed on the town's bylaws and how everything's done in the town. And it's been suspended for, I can't remember for how long it's been out.
I think you
Officially did it in November, so it's been long enough.
Yeah.
Noreen's done a great job for us, advocating on the board's behalf and drafting great decisions and all that, and I think she's caught herself up to speed, interacting with other department heads and reading up on the town bylaws, so I think now would be an appropriate time to reinstate the administrative approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion was moved, motion was made by Ken and seconded by Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And,
If, no, just if possible on that, can we get updates, like
Absolutely.
monthly, whatever, because I don't think we ever got them before, just so we know what's being approved and what isn't.
and that should alleviate the schedule at least a little bit. I know we've been busy, but there's certain projects that the board won't see during a public hearing, and Noreen will take care of that, so, thank you, Noreen.
Yes,
And thank you, Ashley, you're a big part of that, too. Future agenda items, it's been brought to my attention, and again, for those who haven't been on the board for too long, that Cape Cod Aggregates, that's going to be application 52-19 on September 5th. They receive a special permit, it's on a revolving basis, every 3 years to continue earth moving and reclamation of the site. It's located up near the dump, if anyone's familiar with that area. Essentially, what they do is they move earth, they take minerals out, and then they reclaim the area, they replant trees, and it's on a rotating basis, both on the site and in terms of their permit. They like to reach out to the board and extend an offer to do a site visit, and they have offered August 17th or the 24th for that site visit. I know in the past, we've typically gone there on like a Saturday morning, and it doesn't take too long, but they like to show what they've been up to, and if you've been on the board long enough, you actually see the sites where they've been working, and then ultimately, 3 years later, you'll see that there's trees growing there, and they're on to another part of the site, so.
I'd favor the 24th.
17th is road race weekend.
Oh, it is. That's out.
And early on the 24th, when do they usually do it?
It's usually, I remember going there early. I don't remember what time, either 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. Noreen, do they offer a specific
I
time?
think whatever time is good for you, they will.
Yeah,
Yeah, so 9 at the latest.
okay.
Do we have to notice that even though we're not discussing anything?
I think it's always best to notice, just in case.
Yeah.
You want to do 9 AM on the
24th at 9?
The 24th.
24th at 9 o'clock, and it'll be noticed, just in case if there's majority members there. All right, anything else for future agenda items? Seeing none, meeting adjourned.